All right, everybody. It was an eventful NFL draft weekend. As always, we got some wild cards. We got some weird picks. We have landing spots to look at. We've got draft capital to look at. It's time to go back to the drawing board. It's time to start from scratch with some new rookie tiers, given the information that we've got. So we're going to jump into that. My name is Paul. This is Pure Potential. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment, all that good stuff. Let's get into it. So it's just been a few days since the draft wrapped up. I know a lot of rookie drafts have already gotten underway. I know I'm a little bit late to the party with the rookie rankings, but I wanted to get my takes out there into the world. Fortunately, I think the majority of rookie drafts don't start until this upcoming weekend or even later than that. And later this week, I will be coming out with my rookie targets and fades that take into account rookie draft ADP to let you know what spots on the board do you want to be moving up and down to, what players do I think you can get at great values, and what players am I maybe staying away from or don't expect to draft a lot of. So I think that's going to be really helpful. And if you are interested in that, go ahead and subscribe. Both of those videos coming out within the next couple of days. Today, we're just doing regular old rookie tiers. This is how I would rank these rookies in a vacuum. I'm not accounting for ADP. This is just how I like them personally based on their landing spot, draft capital, their prospect profile, all that stuff. And we're going to assume for this exercise that we're doing 12 team, start 10, super flex, PPR, tight end premium. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look here at the tiers we've got going on. And as we get into this, big shout out to a lot of analysts that impact my process that I have learned from, specifically JJ Zacharyson, Jacob Sanderson, Scott Barrett, Matt Harmon. I don't come up with all of my conclusions in a vacuum. I don't just like retreat into a fortress of solitude and, figure out my rookie rankings by myself. I'm doing research. I'm looking at what other people say that I trust, and those guys have absolutely impacted my process and some of my decision making along the way here. But all that being said, tier one, it's called 101 for a reason. It's an easy one. Everybody's got the same guy here. Not much to say about it. Ashton Jeanty is the 101. Nothing changed with the NFL draft. He got the capital we were hoping for. He goes to an offense where he's going to get all the volume that he can handle. He's a first round pick on underdog, and that's for good reason. Like, this guy is incredible, could touch the ball 350, 400 times. There's just nothing to say. He's my Dynasty RB3. He's in the same tier as Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson for me, and I'm not really even going to be surprised if he ends up ahead of those guys, by October. But tier two is where things get interesting because everybody's got a different answer for who is the 102. I guess not everybody. There's only a couple of options really, but there's definitely a big divide in the space. I've seen good arguments for Amari Hampton. I've seen good arguments for Travis Hunter. I've seen some arguments for Ted McMillan. I've even seen people say Cam Ward because of the scarcity of quarterbacks. For me, I'm going with Travis Hunter. If you watched the live stream I did on Saturday, this was one of the first things that I talked about because I got a question about it. Who do I prefer at 102? For me, again, assuming it's PPR, it's start three wide receivers, all that stuff. That's the normal league that I play in. I'm valuing Travis Hunter ahead of Amari Hampton. I just think that this guy is a potentially generational talent. I know that word gets thrown around, but genuinely think it applies to Travis Hunter. He has a massive investment from the team. Highest drafted wide receiver of all time. And not just that, but the team traded away a future first to go up and get him. I know that he also plays corner, but you have to understand that there's a difference in the value of these two positions. Wide receiver is just a far more valuable position. You can see that reflected in NFL contracts. The second contracts that these guys get, far larger for wide receivers because that is becoming a premium position, a position of scarcity in the league when it comes to the top guys. They're not getting to free agency, right? T. Higgins didn't get to free agency. Not even Chris Godwin got to free agency, really. So it's a position that teams are increasingly incentivized to draft early, try to develop in-house because you just can't go out and get these great wide receivers. And then the team came out and immediately said he's primarily playing wide receiver to start. That means it's kind of in his hands, right? If he's as good as I think he is, he's going to force the team to play him on offense more and more. And I think he's going to end up being a full-time wide receiver. I don't know how much defense he'll play. Maybe he'll play full-time both ways. I'm not ruling that out. But I don't think that he's going to get on the field on offense and do anything that's going to make the team want to reduce his snap share, reduce his route share. I think they're just going to want to get him the ball as much as possible. As far as his actual profile as a wide receiver, if something you need a little bit more convincing on because maybe the analytics aren't quite there, like you can't just look at the basic analytical numbers, yards per team pass attempt, yards per out run, raw production, and say, yeah, he's Malik Neighbors. Yeah, he's CeeDee Lamb. Maybe you can't say that just looking at the surface, but there is a really interesting article over on PFF by Jonathan McCry. I don't know how to say his name. It's about expected yards per out run. So it's basically looking at how different personnel groups impact yards per out run for a wide receiver. And what it found is that every time you add another wide receiver to the field, the average yards per out run for all of the wide receivers goes down. And that's because players that are fullbacks, running backs, tight ends, they're just much worse at earning targets. Like the team wants to throw to wide receivers. And so when you play on a team that runs a ton of 4 and 5 wide receiver sets, like Travis Hunter did, it artificially deflates your yards per out run. And this is an excerpt from that article. It says, it's worth noting that Hunter's expected yards per out run, 1.27, based on his usage, is among the lowest of any wide receiver prospects since 2019 as a result of running more routes from 4 and 5 wide receiver sets than any other projected top 100 receiver, and the fewest routes in this class from the most common 3 wide receiver sets. So he had a really, really low expected yards per out run. He managed to overcome that and way exceed his expectations to the point that his yards per out run is actually still quite good. It just isn't at the level of, again, a Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison, but with the adjustments, it's understandable that it wasn't at that level. So I just think that the defensive concerns are a little bit overblown. I think that the team needs him to be insanely good at wide receiver or they're all going to get fired. Like this move does not work unless Travis Hunter is a Pro Bowl caliber wide receiver. And I think he's the type of guy that can get that done. So I don't want to miss out on him. He narrowly edges out Amari Hampton for my 102 spot. I would not blame anybody for taking Hampton, and I'm going to put him here next. For Amari Hampton, he is an incredibly safe selection, no doubt about that. High floor, high ceiling. He's a first-round running back. That right off the bat, that gets you in the conversation for picks this high, just that information alone. But looking at Hampton specifically, goes to a good offense, a team that I think it's a little overblown, this idea that the Chargers just want to run the ball on every play. I don't think that's the case, but yeah, they'll probably be above average in overall rush attempts. Justin Herbert at quarterback is absolutely a floor raiser for him. There's going to be a base level of competency for the offense. I don't think he's going to jump right into RB1 production from the jump, from week 1, but Najee Harris is not a significant obstacle in my opinion. Anybody who's trying to fade Hampton because Najee's there, I think that's silly. Like, to me, he's really no different than Rachaad White at this point. He's this big running back, not really going to break off any big plays, not too explosive, just a guy that can really soak up volume when he's asked to. I don't think he really demands volume on his own. Maybe when he was a first-round pick for the Steelers and there was sort of that sunk cost fallacy, yeah, we got to get this guy the ball. Now he's on his second contract on a new team, $5 million contract. That's nothing. Like, the team doesn't owe him a thing. They drafted Hampton in the first round for a reason. I think at least by the time we get to the back end of the season, Hampton is going to be the clear bell cow. My one real nitpick with him, and I don't know if this is the thing that keeps Hunter ahead of him or if I'm just really high on Hunter, but my one nitpick with Hampton would be his receiving ceiling. So Greg Roman, offensive coordinator, people think like, oh, you want Greg Roman running backs. He's great for the run game. Sort of true, right? He has historically had a high rush rate, but his offenses have been historically very stingy with running back targets. So you look back, he was with the Chargers last year. They ranked 31st in running back targets. And then you look at his 4 years with the Ravens, 2019 to 2022, they ranked 30th, 31st, 27th, and 30th in running back targets. So that basically bottom 6 all of those years, bottom 3 in 4 of the 5. That's really low. And I think it's too low for it to just be a coincidence. Like, I know he had Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, and mobile quarterbacks don't check down to the running backs as often, but it's worth noting the Ravens were 14th last year in running back targets. So it's not like Lamar is incapable of checking down. And yeah, last year in LA, it was Dobbins, it was Gus Edwards, it's not like those guys are elite receiving backs. I don't think Hampton is an elite receiving back either, though. He's very capable of it. If he was in a system that was already prone to throw to the running back, I think he would thrive. But I don't think he's going to necessarily force the team to pepper him with targets. So I do have a little bit of a concern about his target ceiling. Again, it's a super small nitpick. It's really only going to impact his absolute ceiling. And we don't even know how long Greg Roman is going to be with the Chargers. So it's a very minor concern, still a clear 103 here. And I think he absolutely could carve out like a Mixon or a Zeke type of career where he has multiple RB1 seasons, even sneaks into top 5 seasons. He's a top 5 dynasty running back for me already. So when I say minor, I really mean a minor nitpick, but it is something to be aware of. I wouldn't necessarily expect him to be catching, 70, 80 passes a season anytime soon. All right, we're going to close this thing out with Ted McMillan, who has kind of become like the boring pick in this tier for me, but he's still a player that I'm happy to take it for if the other guys are off the board. I think Scott Barrett put it best in his pre-draft wide receiver rankings article when he said that McMillan's biggest green flag is that he doesn't have any major red flags. And I totally agree with that. There's really nothing to look at in Ted's profile that you can really poke holes in. And I think that does make him a pretty safe selection. Like if I have any concerns about him, it would really be more about his absolute ceiling than his floor. I think it's extremely unlikely that he's going to be, a pure bust, especially now that we got that top 10 draft capital locked in. That really does cement the Drake London comparison. They literally go in the same draft slot, 8th overall. They both go to an NFC South team as well. So I totally think that he's going to succeed. I don't have any reasons to fade him at all. And Scott also included this chart in his write-up, which is cool. It shows how he pairs up with Drake London in a lot of key areas. And you can see over their final 2 seasons, very similar. Tet slightly higher yards per out run, London slightly ahead in first downs per out run. All of these numbers, though, contested targets, missed tackles forced, yards after catch, all of them are quite similar. I think they are similar prospects. They give London the edge because he was a little bit younger. He had stronger target competition in Michael Pittman and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So certainly not putting him in the exact same conversation with Drake London, but similar style of player. I think similar tier of talent, and just a great pick here at the 4th overall spot. Now, this is where I think I deviate from the consensus a bit. I'm actually going to put Cam Ward at the top of the next tier. I know for a lot of people, he is going in that tier with McMillan, Hunter, Hampton, and truly, I can't fault anybody for wanting to just go ahead and grab Cam Ward, 101 overall quarterback. That's a solid bet. Just in a vacuum, even if you know nothing else about the quarterback, that's a pretty solid bet. He has a good chance to grow or at least maintain his value if he can just be competent in year 1. Like if he's not just total dumpster fire, he's going to be worth about the same next year. And if he shows us any type of progression throughout the season, he's probably going to gain value. So from that angle, he's a totally fine pick. He's not somebody I'm necessarily avoiding. But when I was putting my overall rankings together, I just couldn't get him close enough to these other 3 to feel great about putting him in the same tier. So if you want to call it like a half step down, maybe not a full tier break, but I do have him as my clear 5, and I can't really see myself selecting him over any of the other 3. I have him ranked pretty similarly to Trevor Lawrence and JJ McCarthy in Dynasty. He's not a rusher, at least not more so than guys like Lawrence or Justin Herbert or anything like that. And so when you think about what's his path to becoming an actual elite fantasy quarterback, somebody who you are actively targeting because they're going to score a bunch of points, that's a very narrow path for him. Right? When we see quarterbacks get to that range, you're talking about someone like Joe Burrow leading the league in passing volume and also being a top 5 talent at the position. You're talking about at one point, Justin Herbert was in that conversation. He's dropped down a little bit into that next tier. Stroud was in that conversation after year 1, couldn't keep it up in year 2. It is a very hard needle to thread for these kind of non-Konami code quarterbacks to consistently put up that type of production. And obviously, as a rookie, we shouldn't be expecting him to put up a ton of points because Tennessee's not in a great spot. They've got Calvin Ridley and not much else in the receiver room. Even CJ Stroud, who had a great rookie season, by rookie quarterback standards, he only finished QB 11. So it's not like Ward's going to come out and light it up right away. And I think Jacob Sanderson had a great take on his Substack. It's called Thinking About Thinking. I've mentioned it before. It's well worth the subscription. He says this about Cam Ward. If the idea is to bank on quarterback value accrual in order to eventually trade Ward for a higher price, I'd rather just take the running backs, wide receivers I have more conviction in the talent of right now and who I can put in my lineup right away. And that's pretty much exactly how I feel. I would just rather have Hunter, Hampton, or McMillan than take Ward because of the safety, hoping that I can trade him for a player of that caliber later on. So he sits here at the top of my next tier. And this is actually a tier of just two guys for me. The other one being Trevion Henderson. I originally had Henderson at the top of the next tier, but after some deliberation, I decided that I'd really never take any of the other guys in that tier ahead of him. So it was sort of like a bit of a separation for me. And I actually have him ranked closer to Ward in Dynasty than the rest of the players in the next tier. So really like Henderson, 38th overall pick in the draft, puts him in the same draft range as guys like Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, Javonte Williams, Nick Chubb. Not all those guys hit in a major way, but they all did have their moments. They all were highly valued in Dynasty at one time or another. It's a significant investment from the Patriots. Like, they desperately needed to add some juice to their offense. They could have taken Luther Burden. I still kind of think they should have. They went with the running back instead. Not too surprising when you think about who's in charge, right? Mike Vrabel loves his running backs, but he didn't go out and try to get a Derrick Henry clone. He went out and got a smaller, more explosive back. This is a new archetype in the league. Jahmyr Gibbs, Devon Achane type of running back. And we've seen other smaller guys too. Kyron Williams, James Cook. Like, these guys are everywhere now. Bucky Irving too. These guys are everywhere. So I'm not really worried about Henderson being a little bit smaller. He's a great pass blocker, especially for his size, one of the best in the class. He's a great receiving back. Like, he's capable of running actual routes. And he's second in the class in career yards per carry. He was just insanely efficient in college. Good pass catcher, good pass blocker. He's good at everything. And now he gets this draft capital. And I'm just going to come out and say it. I do not care about Ramondre Stevenson. I know that he got a bigger contract last year. In fact, I thought that might be a reason to buy into him a little bit, was because of that contract. I ended up being wrong. They went out and spent this top 40 pick on Henderson. I don't care about Ramondre. This is a new regime that came in, immediately drafted a new running back. The contract doesn't hold much weight when the people who gave him the contract aren't there anymore. So this is the Henderson show for me. I'm not saying he's going to get 20 carries a game. Ramondre is going to maintain some early down work, but I think Henderson immediately comes in and gets, 8 to 10 carries a game. And more importantly, I think he's easily got like 60 plus reception upside on this team that desperately needs pass catching help. With his skill set, I think he should take over, third downs, 2-minute drill, whatever. And I think the Patriots offense is just going to continue trending up with Drake May there. The addition of Will Campbell helps, Kyle Williams, Stephon Diggs. They're getting some pieces there where they shouldn't be a total disaster like last season. Like, maybe they can at least get up to average or slightly below average offensive production and just continue to trend up over the years. The ultimate upside with Henderson, I just think, is extremely high. I think it is like a Devon Achane type of player. Maybe he's not Jahmyr Gibbs, but a top 5 season from Henderson sometime in the next 3 years just would not surprise me at all. So I'm very high on him. He closes out this third tier, what I'm calling the mid first. And then the guys I'd have in the late first group, we'll kick it off with Colson Loveland. It's worth reminding you that we are talking about tight end premium. In a non-tight end premium, I'm pushing these tight ends down quite a bit, down at least to the end of this tier and maybe even into the next tier. But in tight end premium, I think Loveland is worth the shot here at 7. I know for a lot of people, this spot is Quinshon Judkins. Some people might even have Judkins ahead of Henderson. Not for me. We're going to get to him in a little bit. I'm going with Loveland at 7. He is insanely young. He turned 21 this month. So crazy, crazy young tight end. He gets pretty rare draft capital. We don't see a lot of top 10 picks at tight end. Wasn't really expected to go this high, but he gets picked first pick of Ben Johnson's tenure in Chicago. I just don't think people are high enough on this guy. He's going to play with arguably the best play caller in the league, certainly one of them. He has the physical upside to play full time. I don't know about this recent narrative that he can't block or whatever. That's just beyond stupid. It's not true at all. Nobody thought that coming into the draft process. It's like Warren being a better blocker has somehow made people think that Loveland is a bad blocker. He's absolutely not. He's going to be a full-time player, especially as a top 10 pick. The one thing I'll say about Loveland that could be a knock, but I don't think it's a big deal. What we want from our fantasy tight ends to really get to that peak level of upside is we want them to be top 2 pass catchers on their team. You think about the prime Kelsey years, he's been the number 1 pass catcher for the Chiefs. You think about the peak years we've gotten from Mark Andrews, where it was him and maybe Hollywood Brown. Those were the top 2 targets. Think about Trey McBride last year, Brock Bowers last year. You want to be a top 2 pass catcher. It's very hard for the number 3 pass catcher, whether it's a tight end or a wide receiver, to hit a massively high ceiling, even in the best of offenses. And that is definitely murky in Chicago because they have DJ Moore, they have Rome Odunze, they have Luther Burden as well. But DJ Moore is aging. I don't think he's going to be with the team long term. I genuinely wouldn't even be surprised if he got traded this offseason, but I think he's probably gone after this year. Rome Odunze, great wide receiver prospect, has not proven to be a high-end wide receiver in the league yet. I know people have high hopes for him. There are certainly reasons to be optimistic, but he hasn't proven it yet. And then we have Luther Burden, who is certainly an intriguing prospect, certainly has red flags as well. So I'm not going to say it's the most likely outcome in the world that Colston Loveland becomes a top 2 target on his team, especially this year. But I think he's got decent enough odds to do it. And when you combine that with the value insulation and the extreme upside that he has as this 21-year-old rookie, with the receiving profile that he has, like literally carrying the Michigan offense on his back, I think he has the best combination of value insulation and upside of any tight end other than Brock Bowers and Trey McBride. I actually have him as my tight end 3 in Dynasty. I know that that's a hot take, but I want you to remember how fast Sam Laporta ascended as a rookie. The market is thirsty for another elite tight end to join the ranks. So if Loveland can come out and do a little bit better than people think he's going to, he is going to rise in value. Not going to blame anybody for maintaining Sam Laporta as the tight end 3 in Dynasty. But for me, I am just not that excited to roster Sam Laporta anymore. I understand what the trajectory looked like after his rookie season. It was like total rocket ships. We're going to the moon. This guy's amazing. He took a significant step back in year 2 that I feel like is underreported. He was the tight end 7 in points per game, tight end premium. And tight end 7 is really overstating his impact because he scored 12.8 points per game and the tight end 6 was at 15.3. So it was a 2.5 point drop off. Really, there were 6 tight ends that were good last year. Sam Laporta was just the best of the worst. There was not a huge gap between him and a ton of other players that were much, much cheaper. So like on a value basis, he was literally the worst tight end you could roster in Dynasty last year when you're talking about value versus production. And how did this happen? Why did this happen? Well, first of all, from year 1 to year 2, he saw no growth in his route participation. He was stuck at 70%. His targets per route run dropped down to just 20%. And that corresponds perfectly with Jameson Williams breaking out. He became the clear 3rd option in the offense. Jameson Williams, as a wide receiver, if he was good, he was always going to become that 2nd option. And he was good. And Laporta suffered for it. Now, they bring back Amon-Ra, obviously. They have Jameson Williams and Sam Laporta. I don't see any reason why he jumps back up to being the 2nd option in that offense. And when you consider that the Lions' offense as a whole has nowhere to go but down, they were literally the best scoring offense of the last 5 years. Jared Goff threw 4,700 yards and 37 touchdowns. I would bet heavily that all of those things are going to regress in 2025. They are going to score fewer points. There are going to be fewer passing touchdowns. They are going to have fewer passing yards. All of those things are going to happen. I don't see how Sam Laporta is getting back up into the 15, 16 points per game range unless he just runs insanely hot on touchdowns. So if I'm going to pay up for a tight end, I want access to that difference-making upside. I don't need the safety of someone like Sam Laporta when I can pay a late second and go get Evan Ingram. I can go get Jonnu Smith. So if I'm going to bet up on a tight end all the way up, and I can't get McBride, I can't get Bowers, I would rather roll the dice on Loveland, who has the benefit of being unknown, is that mystery box component, and could potentially emerge as that clear 3rd elite tight end if everything breaks right. Okay, that was a bit of a long rant on Colston Loveland. Let's get the rest of the prospects in this tier. It's going to be Emeka Egbuka, it's going to be Quinshon Judkins, Tyler Warren, and RJ Harvey. I'm just going to hit on each of these guys real quick. For Emeka Egbuka, absolutely love the prospect. Good production, good pedigree at Ohio State, good draft capital, goes top 20. Didn't necessarily love the landing spot right away, and I still don't entirely love it. But after having some time to think about it, I'm not as concerned as I was initially. It's definitely not ideal for his year 1 production, but that's also baked into the ranking. Like if he went to a better team like Washington or Houston, where there was a wide open depth chart, he'd be higher. He'd be with Henderson, maybe even ahead of Henderson. So that's factored in, that he doesn't have a super great year one projection because of Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. But it's also not a terrible spot. Just the infrastructure is not terrible, because we know that there's going to be a high offensive floor because you have this capable quarterback in Baker Mayfield. You've got great weapons around Igbuka. They've got a good running back. Like everything there is set up for him to be at least in a successful offense. You're not going to be like Garrett Wilson wasting away in New York while they, go through quarterback after quarterback. And then Evans and Godwin are both older. Godwin's 29, Evans is 31. They've both had injuries in recent years. Both of them missed time last year. We just don't know how these situations are always going to shake out. And so I'm willing to bet on the talent here in the late first. And I'm not really that concerned if he doesn't light up the box score in year one, because that's factored in. He's not going to get dinged in Dynasty if he's not lighting it up right away. A red shirt year is basically priced in. What I'm going to be looking for is the per out efficiency. It's what we did not see from JSN. It's what we didn't see from Adunze. Obviously with JSN, he was able to right the ship, but when he's on the field, when Igbuka's on the field, I just want to see him earning targets and being efficient with those targets. I want some indication that the talent is there. If I see that year one, I'm totally fine to hold him into year two. And if he's underperforming, enough people are going to be making excuses for his situation that I can probably cash out and go ahead and get into the next prospect if I want to. So I've got him at 8, Judkins at 9. Probably one of my bigger discrepancies with the market. If I had to guess, I haven't looked at the ADP within the last 24 hours or so, but I'd say Judkins is consistently going higher than this, probably around that 7 spot. He's just not my favorite prospect in the draft. I'm not willing to ignore top 40 draft capital completely, so this is where he lands for me. But I'm probably not going to get a lot of shares because he's not lasting till 109 very frequently. I'm okay missing out on him for a couple of reasons. One, I've already stated my concerns with his rushing profile in a previous video. I'm not going to lay out the whole case again, but outside of his freshman season, which was really just okay from an efficiency standpoint, obviously really awesome from a raw production standpoint, he has been propped up by volume throughout his college career. And I think the excerpt from Scott Barrett's article really sums this up nicely. Among all the round 1 through 4 projected running backs in this year's class, Judkins ranks the worst by career yards after contact per attempt, career missed tackles forced per attempt, and career box adjusted yards per carry. By career yards per out run, he ranks 3rd worst. That's a lot of worsts. You don't want to be the worst in stuff. I understand that advanced efficiency metrics can be overrated, but I think they at least have some signal in the sense that if you're near the bottom, you're probably not too good. And if you're near the top, you probably are good. There are factors that are going to be confounding variables. There are going to be situational things that we can't always account for. But in general, I think it's probably bad to be near the bottom of all of these things. And even if the rushing efficiency concerns are overblown, even if they're a non-factor, maybe they totally don't matter. He gets to the league, he gets coached up, suddenly his vision improves, he's a better rusher, whatever. He's still unlikely to be much of a receiving threat at the next level because he has an extremely low yards per out run. Like a yards per out run so low, we almost never, ever, ever see running backs enter the league like this and become high volume receivers. We saw it from Kenneth Walker last year. Other than that, we really haven't seen it. I don't think he's going to be utilized heavily in that regard. I think Jerome Ford is probably going to hold on to the main pass catching role in Cleveland. And by the way, speaking of Cleveland, Quinshon Judkins is on the Browns. Like if he hits in a massive way in fantasy, it's probably going to be on the back of a high touchdown total, 14, 15 rushing touchdowns a year. I just don't see that happening anytime soon with the absolute circus that's going on in Cleveland. I don't think it's Joe Flacco. I don't think it's Dylan Gabriel, Shadur Sanders, Kenny Pickett. I don't think any of those guys are leading a top 10 NFL offense anytime soon. So I just don't see Judkins having the type of ceiling that's really going to bury me. And that's why I'm totally fine to let him fall to the 9th pick, even the 10th pick. I could even see taking Tyler Warren over him, but he sits at 9 right now. On to Warren, though. Great prospect in his own right there with Loveland. I have a slight lean towards Loveland, but same tier. The offensive environment for him is just brutal in 2025. Like you're looking at this Colts situation with Anthony Richardson, with Jonathan Taylor there. I think the Colts are probably a bottom 5 team in total pass attempts this year. They're going to want to hide Richardson as much as possible. He already has, he's going to have a lot of designed runs, but they're also going to want to turn and hand it off to Taylor as much as they can. They do not want Richardson dropping back to pass very frequently. And I think even when they do pass, we're talking bottom of the barrel target quality, right? Like no accuracy to speak of with Richardson. So really bad offensive environment. It's not quite as crowded as it is for Loveland in Chicago, but you've got Pittman, you've got Downs, you've got Pierce, who's a quality outside receiver, used more as a sacrificial X receiver, but still decent. AD Mitchell is kind of an unknown still. Showed some flashes as a rookie. You've got a lot of guys there that could be clamoring for the ball. Just don't think there's going to be enough targets to go around for Warren to do a whole lot as a rookie. Now, the silver lining there is that this should be changing sooner than later. The team is pretty likely to start fresh with a new coach and a new quarterback in 2026 if we don't see Richardson take a big step forward. And even someone like Michael Pittman could potentially be moved if you had a kind of a fresh start, right? He's getting a little bit older. He's got a big contract. You could even see him gone, and then you've got Warren maybe stepping in as the top target or co-top target with Josh Downs in 2026. So at this point in the draft, I'm just happy to bet on talent. I think you have to be comfortable with that at a certain point. You can't just know everything that's going to happen with a situation. You have to just go with the talent at a certain point. You're talking about a top 15 draft pick, incredible fifth-year college production at a position of scarcity. So top 5 Dynasty tight end for me, worth the pick in the late first. And I'm closing out this tier with RJ Harvey, who I think is going to become one of my absolute favorite rookie draft values. Spoiler alert for the rookie targets video. I love RJ Harvey. I think he's an awesome pick. Probably a reach by NFL standards, just given the fact that he's 24 years old, but whatever. I mean, teams typically get these running backs and use them for their whole rookie contracts and then dispose of them anyway. He's going to be in his prime for his whole rookie deal. So if he's the best running back on the board for what the Broncos are trying to do, why not? He was Brett Whitefield's of fantasy points, his RB3 by his film grade. He was Jacob Sanderson's RB5. His production in college is pretty amazing. I know he's an older guy, so the level, maybe he has an advantage over younger players in college that skews these things, but he has just some of the best production in this entire class, which is saying something given how good this class is. There are plenty of stats I could point to. I do like this one from Scott Barrett, which says that RJ Harvey ranks 4th in missed tackles forced per touch among all power conference running backs over the past decade. Bijan Robinson, Bucky Irving, David Montgomery, and then RJ Harvey. So fourth in missed tackles forced per touch. This dude is elusive. He has pass catching skills. I think he's landing in arguably the best situation for any rookie running back this year. I really love this point from Jacob Sanderson. He says, last year, all the Broncos running backs failed, but I was shocked to know that Javonte Williams ranked 5th in running back targets, only behind Hall, Kamara, Achane, and Bijan. Denver ranked 4th in running back targets. That would have paid off. Javonte was just turbo washed. Enter RJ Harvey. Totally agree with this. This is a sick spot for a running back, and they didn't add anybody else. It's Harvey, Audric Estime, and Jaleel McLaughlin. That's the backfield. Okay? Yes, I know that he's 24. Get over it. I don't care. I'm still spending first-round picks on this guy. He played quarterback in high school and as a freshman in college. He tore his ACL. There are good explanations as to why he was in college for so long, at least good enough for me. And here's the thing. You count up all these rookies. He is the 11th overall rookie I've ranked here. Okay, well, what running backs are you able to trade the 111 for? They're all at least 24 years old. You're talking about Josh Jacobs, James Cook, Chase Brown, Chuba Hubbard. He's not older than those guys. And I don't really care that much that he's coming in old, because when it comes to a highly drafted running back, the volume doesn't even have to be earned. He's going to get a shot regardless. But for whatever it's worth, Sean Payton is absolutely gushing over this guy already about how they absolutely love him and how he's the perfect fit for their offense, all this and that. And I agree with him. I think he's going to be a great fit. I think he could genuinely be the second highest scoring rookie running back after Ashton Genty this year. And that's going to lead to a value increase. So he's a clear value to me at the end of this tier. I've even seen him fall into the early seconds. Just an absolute smash pick there. Looking at tier 5, we're going to kick it off with Jackson Dart, my 12th overall prospect here. So technically a first rounder, but I do view him as more of an early second type of value. The first round capital for him ensures he's at least going to get a shot in the league, which is great because you're going to have a shot at a starting quarterback. And he's got a decent college profile. Like, Lane Kiffin's offense is a little bit goofy. It's not pro style, so we'll see how he adjusts. But it's not like he wasn't productive in college. And what I like about him the most is his pretty decent rushing production. Compared to someone like Cam Ward, who maxed out at 204 rushing yards in his best season, you have Jackson Dart, who ran for 614 yards as a sophomore and nearly 500 last year as a senior. So definitely higher rushing upside. Maybe he's not quite like Daniel Jones rushing upside, but maybe more in that mold than like a Justin Herbert kind of tactical scrambler. What's holding him back for me, why I'm not pushing him any higher, is that we don't actually know for sure if he's good, which I guess is never the case. But when you go back into the first round, it's really a problem because those guys don't have the same type of job insulation as the top 5, top 10 drafted quarterbacks do. You know, you look at the track record of those players over the last decade or so. You have the Kenny Pickett's mixed in. You have Paxton Lynch mixed in there. That is concerning. A lot of these guys have busted. So he's not as safe of a pick as somebody like Bo Nix was last year because he went so much higher. And then the situation is just not the best. He's not going to start right away. They're going to play Russ to start the season. I have no idea when they intend to get Dart on the field. And he has nothing to work with outside of Malik Neighbors. I don't care about Wan'Dale Robinson. I don't care about Theo Johnson. He doesn't have a strong offensive infrastructure. And then kind of the cherry on top is there's a lot of uncertainty for the Giants organization just beyond 2025. If this season doesn't go well, probably going to see Brian Daboll fired. I don't know how much good grace he can really buy from that first year that he was there when they made the playoffs. It's been really, really bad. If it doesn't work out this year, if there's not some serious positive progress, he's going to be gone. And then, you know, what happens if the next regime doesn't like Dart? So he sticks here as my 12th overall guy, top of this tier, followed by Caleb Johnson. I absolutely hated this pick for my Jalen Warren bags. I mean, we were almost home free. We were so close. If some team could have just taken Caleb Johnson, I would not have cared if this was Dylan Sampson. I wouldn't have cared if it was Cam Scatabo. I would have been totally fine with it. I would ride with Warren. Caleb Johnson, though, is legit good. Great fit for the Steelers. He's basically going to be Najee Harris, except good and a little bit more explosive. And he's going to be immediately involved. He's going to get on the field right away in week 1 because the team doesn't have a guy like this other than him. He is going to be the bruiser, the early down guy. I don't know how high the ceiling is, especially right away, because the Steelers offense, I mean, right now the quarterback is Mason Rudolph. I do still think they're going to get Rodgers, but even if they get Rodgers, this is going to be an extremely slow offense, probably a low scoring offense, at least below average. And you're going to have Jalen Warren taking the pass catching work. I feel very strongly that he is going to play the third downs, that he's going to get the bulk of the targets. It certainly wasn't Caleb's strong suit in college, and it is Jalen Warren's strong suit. It's what he's done in the league since he got here, and the Steelers absolutely like him in that role. So the reason he doesn't get up into the RJ Harvey group for me is, again, it's about the ceiling concerns. I just don't really see a world where he's putting up 16, 18 points per game unless there are some major changes in how the Steelers are running the show over there. But then I'm going to go ahead and close out this tier with Luther Burden and Matthew Golden. I'm putting them both up here because I do see them very closely. And I know some of you are going to be mad for putting Luther Burden first. Some of you are probably going to call it take lock. Go ahead, go down to the comments and tell me I'm an idiot. One of these guys went in the first round and one went in the second round. Totally true. One of them went to a wide open depth chart and one went to one of the most crowded offenses in the league. That is also true. Both fair reasons to prefer Matthew Golden. Here's the thing. I just think Burden is a vastly superior prospect. His sophomore season, one of the absolute best by any prospect in this draft. And I think JJ Zacharyson made an important point. I think it was with Ron Stewart, actually. They were doing a rookie mock. And what he said about Luther Burden and just in general about prospecting is that when you're talking about analyzing prospects, typically the peaks matter a lot more than the valleys. So what peaks a wide receiver is hitting in college, probably more predictive than whatever their low point was. So even the fact that he stepped back as a junior, that's not a death knell for his career. And when you look at him against someone like Matthew Golden, who really didn't have any peaks in college, it's really hard for me to view them in the same range, all things being equal. Now, all things are not equal because, again, Golden got the better capital. He got the better, at least the better first year landing spot, and that's what sort of evens them out. But if it was a level playing field, right? If they both got drafted to the Packers, I would be taking Luther Burden 100 times out of 100. So you have to understand, I'm not ignoring the context of both of these guys, the context is what puts them close for me. And it's important to not overstate the situation concerns for Luther Burden. He does land with Ben Johnson, perfect offensive coordinator to get the most out of his skill set. So yeah, it's crowded right now, but that can change in a hurry. And if it does change and Burden is as good as his prospect profile could indicate, then it's wheels up. It's massive upside for him. On the other hand, for Matthew Golden, yes, he steps into a spot where he is going to be able to earn as many targets as he's capable of earning pretty much right away. He should be a full-time outside wide receiver playing with Jaden Reed in the slot, Tucker Kraft at tight end, probably Romeo Doubs and Wicks rotating on that other side. But I just am not as confident in his ability to earn those targets. And that's the thing. I think he's going to have probably the better rookie season, but I don't know if it's going to be an impactful enough rookie season for me to care that much. The important caveat for Matthew Golden, I don't hate him, right? Like you can see where I have him ranked here as my 203. I've actually seen him fall into this range in a couple of drafts. And if I am on the clock at 203 and he's the best player there, I'm happily going to press the button. Like I didn't put him in this tier because I thought I had to. I put him in this tier because he does belong in this tier, and I'm totally happy to draft him at this price. If he was like 109, 110, 111, 100% out. But this is the spot where it's absolutely worth swinging on him. So don't get me wrong and think I'm absolutely never going to click the button on Golden despite the red flags. They are more than priced in if he is on the board at 203. Just want to make that clear because I know I've been very negative about him. This would be a great spot to roll the dice. Kicking off our next tier though, 6th tier. We're in the home stretch here. I'm going to try to move quickly. We've got Trey Harris as what I would consider kind of a mid-second value. I almost put him in the last tier just because I love his landing spot. One of my absolute favorites in the whole draft. I actually called this one while I was watching it. I was like, let's get Trey Harris to LA. I couldn't believe it actually happened because it never goes as smoothly as you might hope. But this is just a perfect fit. You know, he's an X wide receiver. Matt Harmon's reception perception bears this out. He's got good success rates against man and press coverage. He's going to be able to play X. There are plenty of red flags in his profile, which is ultimately why he's here and not in the early second group. But he also hit some exciting analytical marks. He had over 5 yards per out run in his last season. People like Dynasty Zoltan, great analyst, Jacob Sanderson also really like his film. I will say that there's some risk he turns into more of like a sacrificial X wide receiver, which I believe is a term that Harmon coined for these guys that run a lot of routes outside. They run down the field. They clear out space. Somebody like an Alec Pierce comes to mind. It's possible that happens. If he doesn't develop his route tree to be a little bit more diverse, to be able to thrive on some more like in-breaking routes, beat zone, that could totally happen. But there is a ton of opportunity next to Ladd McConkey because they don't have another legitimate target earner in that offense. I mean, QJ is not that guy. Their tight end is still Will Dissly, I think. So Harris can step in. He can be the wide receiver 2 right away. That's pretty exciting. I'm going to put Jaden Higgins right behind him. He went ahead of Harris in the draft, but both second round. I might have flipped him with Harris if the Texans didn't also draft Jalen Noel, which is a super cool story. I absolutely love it for them. You know, get to go from being college teammates to NFL teammates. It's super annoying for fantasy though, because what I initially loved about this pick of Higgins is that I thought he was going to have a chance to play kind of a power slot role, similar to what we've seen from Drake London, where London will play outside, but he also goes inside quite a bit. And I thought playing with Nico Collins, perfect. Higgins can slide inside a whole bunch, and he will really thrive there. Harmon compared him a little bit to Keon Coleman, who he also had pegged as like a power slot guy. I think he's better than Coleman. He's definitely more athletic, but that would have been great for him. Now you've got Jalen Noel there. That makes it a little bit murkier because Noel was the slot guy at Iowa State. He played slot while Higgins played outside. You have to assume the Texans picking Noel see him as a slot receiver, and 3rd round draft capital isn't nothing. So they're going to give him a chance to earn that spot. It means Higgins is going to have a harder time getting snaps inside. He's going to have to win outside. Now, you know, Noel still has to also be good to prevent that. And Higgins is still going to have more opportunity to succeed because he was the higher pick and because he's much more likely to get those 2 wide receiver snaps given his size and his college production. So he's still ahead of Noel quite comfortably for me, and I still like him here in the mid-second. I just thought there was maybe potential for more prior to the Noel pick. And then finishing out this tier, mid-second tier, we're going to go with Bashal Tutin, day 3 running back. This is about as high as you're going to see me rank a day 3 running back, but this is the absolute perfect storm for Bashal Tutin. First of all, just a good prospect, like solid profile across the board, insanely elusive. He's a speed demon. I think he had the fastest 40 for all the running backs at the combine, and he's a very, very early 4th round pick. I think he was the 2nd pick of the 4th round. He's been handpicked by this new regime. Liam Cohn comes in. The incumbent running backs, ETN, Tank Bigsby, pretty uninspiring. Like they have good traits, whatever. There's things they do well, but they're not super intimidating. They're not super inspiring. They come in and immediately draft a guy that on paper looks like a fast Bucky Irving. I don't think that that's a coincidence with Liam Cohn coming to town, who just got the most out of Bucky Irving, gave him a shot as a 4th round running back to overtake the incumbent Rachaad White, who was coming off of a pretty successful high volume season. Now, history has shown us that nothing is guaranteed for these day 3 players, but honestly, I'm going to be pretty shocked if Tutin doesn't get on the field sooner than later. I just think he brings something to the table that neither of these other backs do. Again, the team has hand selected him for a reason. I think he's going to play. And more importantly, if he does play and if he's good, think back to Bucky Irving a year ago. His realistic ceiling in terms of value, in terms of production, is probably the highest in this tier and maybe higher than most of the players in the last tier as well, because he does have the pass catching profile. He has the insanely explosive, elusive rushing production as well. And all of this, I think, makes that mid-2nd round pick more than worthwhile. Even though there is risk, even though there's a low floor, you're not talking about a super high opportunity cost when you get into the 206, 207 range. So I say swing away. I say grab Bashal Tutin. I'm going to be trying to get as much of him as I can at, reasonable prices. But yeah, absolutely love that fit. That was an exciting pick on day 3, probably my favorite pick of the whole day 3 there. And then we get to the last tier, and this tier is really 2 tiers pushed together because I have a little bit of a half tier break, but I wanted to get more players in here and I couldn't fit another tier on the screen. So we're going to start with Jack Bech and Cam Scatabo, who are really my 2 guys that I have ahead of the rest of this tier. Really love that Jack Bech got that round 2 capital. On another team, I might have even put him in that tier with Tutin and Higgins and Trey Harris. I just find the fit in Vegas a little bit awkward because I think Bech profiles best as like a big slot, and now he's not really going to get a lot of slot reps with Bowers and Myers there because like both of those guys are going to play a lot inside and they're not going to take those away from 2 really good players to give them to Bech. I'm worried if he's miscast as like a true X receiver, which they just don't have, I think it could go poorly. He's not fast, didn't test at all, right? Because he's not fast. His worst routes on reception perception were the go route, the corner route. So there's concern there with the fit. But I like the talent. I like the draft capital. Love betting on him here in the late 2nd. And then Cam Scatabo, he gets that soft landing spot in New York. Very, very early round 4, just like Tutin. Only competing with Tracy, who's another day 3 running back. So it's like totally up in the air. It's probably going to be a let the best man win type of situation. Most likely scenario is that they end up splitting and kind of caps both their ceilings because that offense isn't great. But if one of them is going to win in a big way, it's probably Scatabo, who has the size advantage, pass catching advantage. Tracy, obviously the incumbent, maybe gets the first crack at it, but there's enough of a chance that Scatabo runs away with the job to make him worth the pick here. And then we're going to go with Kyle Williams, gets that 3rd round capital for Drake May, who gets another weapon that he desperately needs. He's going to have the chance to play right away because Jalen Polk sucks and all the other wide receivers they have outside of Stephon Diggs pretty much suck. So Kyle Williams, worth the shot there. Jalen Milroe, this is all about upside. If he ever gets on the field, immediate QB1 projection for the week. And he has outs to playing either due to injury or Darnold just being bad, right? There's 2 ways for him to get on the field, but the Seahawks traded away Sam Howell. So Jalen Milroe is the backup, and that's pretty exciting. We're going to go Terrence Ferguson next. Uber athletic, best athlete at the combine at tight end. Good draft capital in the 2nd round goes to the Sean McVay offense, who has even made Tyler Higbee relevant. They picked him out. Devontae Adams is getting older. Nothing else there outside of Puka. So I like the upside for Ferguson. Then we'll get to Jalen Knoll here. We're outside of the top 24 here, or maybe this is number 24 with Knoll, but I do view him as like a late 2nd type of value. I was hoping he would go round 2. I was hoping he would go to a less crowded spot. Even if he's better than Higgins, which is obviously unclear, it's still going to be a major battle for him to earn a full-time role. because he's not very big. He doesn't have much of a track record of playing outside. Think of him as someone like Josh Downs or Jaden Reed, except we don't actually know how good he is. So it's like he has to prove he's good, and then he has to prove he can play outside. That's a pretty big ask for him to reach a high ceiling, but clearly the best prospect left on the board by the time we get down here. So I'm willing to roll the dice. We're going to close it out reluctantly with Tyler Shuck. I think he's terrible personally. I don't understand the pick from the Saints perspective, but he's probably going to be one of only 32 week 1 starting quarterbacks. So like, I can't push him down any further than that. Like, starting quarterbacks have value. He does have, decent draft capital behind him. We've seen guys like Derek Carr and Jalen Hurts emerge from this second round. Certainly he's not a prospect on par with those guys, but we get quarterbacks wrong all the time. So I'm throwing Shuck in here in the late seconds. I don't think you can realistically fade him any further, no matter what your priors on him were. If he's going to play, he's going to have a chance to gain value. He's going to have a chance to score points for your team. Anyway, that's going to do it for today, guys. As always, thanks so much for watching this video. Thank you for supporting the channel. Appreciate you. If you enjoy my Dynasty content, you want to catch those rookie draft targets and fades coming this week, and all of my Dynasty content coming out every single week, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. It really goes a long, long way. And if you want more Dynasty content, if you want my rookie rankings, if you want Dynasty rankings, if you want live streams, private Discord channels where you can chat with me anytime, consider becoming a YouTube member. You can join down below. There's a link in the description. There's a join button under the video. That really helps the channel out as well. Hopefully it helps you out. Either way, I'm gonna be back soon with those other videos like I promised, and I hope I will see you then.